The politicians insist that they can stop the VAT increase from happening on the 1st of May through acts of parliament. Unfortunately for them, everybody else says that they don't have enough time and they can't. So let's actually look at whether or not they can stop the VAT increase themselves, as Herman Mashaba insists, without the court doing it for them through the DA-EFF case. Then we need to talk, this week has been so wild, we need to talk about whether or not Paul Mashatile really suffered an assassination attempt, because now, crazily, SAPS seems to believe that his convoy got hit by a random hail of bullets from a nearby shootout in an industrial park, not an assassination attempt. It's all so bizarre in a week where so many ANC leaders were like, assassination attempts aren't always assassination attempts, about their deputy president and the deputy president of the country. And finally, let's talk about look, in hindsight, incredibly nothing state visit of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, because it was billed to be a massive visit to South Africa. He met President Ramaphosa. It almost looked like Ramaphosa couldn't meet him because he was sick the day before. Ramaphosa also took calls from Putin and Trump about this meeting. It looked like it was going to be huge. And in the end, nothing really to write home about, as Zelenskyy actually left early to go back to Ukraine. So that's what we're going to talk about as the news stories on the Quarter Reports today. Before then, though, I just need to tell you about something awesome that we have made for you. Something new and awesome. If you are in Cape Town, haven't you always wanted to go and spend a night with wonderful, fascinating people in like a bar, just hanging out for a few hours with the good drinks and the good food, where fascinating conversations are happening by an assortment of experts on an assortment of topics? I have always wanted to go to an event like that, and for a while it just didn't exist, and so then I decided we're just going to make it. So we're trying it out. It's absolutely brand new, and we would love you to come, because it's going to be a live podcast recording also. The event is called Wouldn't You Like to Know? And you can go and buy your ticket now on Quickt for just 100 Rand. Proceeds go to the speakers from those ticket fees, because we think it's important that in South Africa we start to have speakers be paid for what they usually do for free. And what it's going to be is 7th of May, 7 to 9 p.m. at the iconic Gin Bar on Whale Street in Cape Town. I'm going to invite 3 brilliant expert speakers. Each of them is going to speak on something that they know a lot about on a variety of topics. It's probably going to be some politics, but it could be sport or music or culture or geography or even economics, maybe even some archaeology. Why not? We're going to get 3 speakers. Each speaker is going to speak for about 15 minutes. Then there's going to be 5-10 minutes Q&A. And then there's going to be a big old break so that we can discuss and hang out and get to know each other in a very cool late night context. And then the next speaker is going to do the same thing. And then the third. We would love you to come and join us. Again, it's called Wouldn't You Like to Know? You can get your tickets now on Quickt for just 100 Rand per person. Please go buy them as soon as you can. Cape Town, I know what you like. You buy things at the last moment. Just 100 Rand on Quickt, and see you for a live podcast recording of the show with all of these epic speakers. Wouldn't You Like to Know? Presented by Dan Corder on the 7th of May, 7 to 9 p.m., Whale Street, the Gin Bar in Cape Town. Okay, will there be a VAT increase on the 1st of May? The likes of Herman Mashaba, as you saw on yesterday's show, insisted that there would not be a VAT increase on the 1st of May. We've already spoken at length on yesterday's show about how today is Friday, Monday is a public holiday, Freedom Day weekend, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday is the 1st of May, is Workers' Day, is also a public holiday. We have addressed at length how borderline impossible it's going to be for many large and smaller companies to change what they had already changed, to change to a 15.5% total VAT with a 0.5% increase. But the politicians seem to believe that they can push it through. In fact, the finance minister gazetted the bill to withdraw the bill, or to cancel the previous bill, and to cancel the fiscal framework that was approved and voted for by Parliament. Remember, that was the whole Action SA thing, as much as they want you to forget. They gazetted that yesterday. But still, it seems like unless our own parliament, our own government breaks the law to try and rush through this bill on a bill, They're not going to have enough time. The first priority is to stop the VAT increase. There are only two ways to do this: through a court order or by passing a rates and money amounts bill through Parliament. The quickest and safest is through the courts, which avoids any accounting and VAT refund problems. A parliamentary process would take too long and would not stop the VAT increase in time. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana gazetted a new rates bill reversing the increase on Thursday. However, Godongwana must allow time for public comment, and then the parliamentary committees must process the bill. There is no time to do that by South African law. So now we have this bizarre situation where maybe GNU partners will try to break South African law to push through the cancellation of the VAT increase proposal before the 1st of May, which would lead to an extraordinary situation where I wonder if anybody would bother to take them to court to stop them from breaking the law. It's an absolutely insane situation, and once again makes me believe that this wasn't the grand plan all along of the GNU. I just don't, they know this. They know this reality. I hope they do. They've been in Parliament, although it seems like quite a lot of our politicians actually know next to nothing about how Parliament and governance works. Shout out. But they waited to the last second, in fact, past the last second, to then say, oh, no, we've decided together after long-running consultations and deliberations and whatever that we're going to do this. I just don't believe them. The only significant difference between now and last week, when it didn't look like VAT increase was going to be cancelled, and leaders in the GNU were saying, we hope to stop the VAT increase. The only thing that's changed between this week and last week is that court case where it suddenly looked like the DA and the EFF were going to win. And so this looks far more like a face-saving measure than anything else from the GNU. So it really does look like right now that the GNU is praying that the court case causes the judge presiding to create an interim relief order to stop the VAT increase on the 1st of May, even though they spent the whole briefing yesterday and then messaging on social media throughout the end of yesterday, trying to convince South Africans and themselves that screw the DA, it's not the DA, it's not the courts, it's all us, we are all doing this thing. Which is a bit risky for them, because if they can't push it through the probably illegal speeding, it's literally like speeding, like driving a car too fast, to stop the VAT increase before the 1st of May, and the court doesn't do an interim relief order, then VAT's going to go up on the 1st of May, and then y'all really did do this. So it's really hectic right now for all of these different politicians who insist that it wasn't the DA and the EFF's court case. So that's the first thing. But the other thing that nobody has been speaking about, which really concerns me, is the fact that there was another part to the initial plan to raise more money besides a VAT increase. It was what many people call income tax creep. So here's how it works. When you earn a certain amount of money, if you earn above a certain threshold per year, you go into a tax bracket and then you are taxed at a certain percentage. If you earn a lot more money than that, you go into a different tax bracket and then you are taxed more, and so on and so on and so on. And the thing that got far less publicity because it affects fewer people, that was also part of the finance minister's plan along with the VAT increase, was freezing of income tax brackets. So usually in a normal year, what happens is those tax brackets increase with inflation, recognizing that your rands are becoming less valuable, which means that essentially if you earn, say, 100,000 rand in a year in 1 year, and that just gets you into a tax bracket, but then there's 5% inflation, next year that tax bracket will be 105,000 rand for you to enter that tax bracket. So if you're still making 100K, you don't move into that higher tax bracket in recognition of the fact that you are not earning with inflation, and so we won't tax you as though you were earning more in line with inflation. So the finance minister planned to freeze the tax brackets, meaning that inflation continues, but the brackets aren't adjusted with inflation, essentially meaning that more people earning less will now enter tax brackets from this year with the freeze. And people earning a bit more will start to enter higher tax brackets than they would have previously and be taxed more than they would have previously. That's called income tax creep. And nobody said anything about that yesterday in the press conference and the media briefing. And nobody in any position in the GNU or the Treasury has said anything about that since. And so I think it is fair for now to presume that they are going to keep that income tax creep and basically make the political trade-off that if they cancel all VAT, most people won't complain about an income tax creep, even though it's going to affect all earners in South Africa who earn a decent amount of money within certain tax brackets. This income tax creep is going to cause more people to be taxed on income tax and people to be taxed who were already being taxed to be taxed more as they suddenly move into higher brackets because the brackets are not moving up with inflation. That's really important. And that is a way that they're going to try and raise money that is going to make life uncomfortable for particularly lower income and middle class earners who happen to fall within tax brackets already. And we should not forget about that. Okay, next. And hopefully for the last time ever, did Paul Mashatile suffer a failed assassination attempt or not? Just in case you have missed some of our previous shows this week, Paul Mashatile came out over the weekend in the same time as the KwaZulu-Bantu mess, and his people claimed that he had suffered an attempted assassination attempt like 3 weeks before as they were leaving an ANC NEC meeting in Boksburg. There was a picture going around of shots, it seems, hitting the bulletproof windshield at the front of what seemed to be Paul Mashatile's car. SAPS said they would investigate. We all went, why didn't you tell us this 3 weeks ago, bro? And then we all went, why hasn't the ANC spoken about this, bro? It's their deputy president. And why hasn't the presidency spoken about this, bro? It's the deputy president. And why hasn't the media spoken about this, bro? It's the deputy president. We kind of need and want to know this as a country. And nobody answered any of those questions. In fact, the opposite happened. 2 prominent ANC leaders actually said, was it an assassination attempt? One of them even said, people claim assassination attempts all the time. We're not really sure that most of them are real, basically. Like, dodged the question. And then the ANC said, we need to further investigate whether or not it was an assassination attempt. And we all started to speculate, I think very fairly, did this even happen? If it did or didn't happen, why wasn't it spoken about before? Is this a tried and tested and way of politicians to get attention and media attention for themselves? As we have seen all over the world, surviving an assassination attempt is pretty good PR. It works out very well for your political prospects. It raises your profile. So many P's there. Wow. The alliteration. Or is it assonance? Which one is it? Which way around? Vowels and nouns? Vowels and consonants?
I'm pretty sure this is assonance because it's not a vowel.
Well, we both got English honors, so if we got it wrong...
Yeah, drag us in the comments.
Okay, it doesn't matter. So Paul Mashatile, maybe, like many other people who have survived assassination attempts, could then spin this as, people are out to get me because I'm fighting for you. I'm fighting for the common man against the elite, against the political elite and the business elite. That is what we've seen Donald Trump do. That's what we've seen many, many, many different people do. And we were starting to speculate, why is this happening? We know for sure that Mashatile is crisscrossing the country right now, trying to get popular support within the ANC for his attempt to succeed President Ramaphosa as the president of the ANC and the president of South Africa. So all of this was happening at the same time. And then, incredibly, SAPS came out in the last 24, 48 hours and said, so gunshots did hit the car, but we don't think it was an assassination attempt. We believe that it was just random gunfire from a nearby industrial park that went over the highway and hit the deputy president's car. Now, I know that things happen in South Africa that happen nowhere else, like a formerly reputable news media publication claiming the decuplets, 10 children and all the rest. But Eric, that genuinely sounds like a Call of Duty storyline.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to say. One, it was alliteration, not assonance. We got it mixed up. Damn it. Secondly,
okay.
The fact that in the SAPS report, right, it's talking about stray pellets from a shotgun blast, right? So one blast, not necessarily heavy gunfire or anything from a nearby area, but the fact that the same article that I read, we still don't even know which route he took home. We can't really see where it happened, which is bizarre. The fact that that's even in question, this whole thing is just really weird. And the fact that he just thought it was stones, right? Which is maybe the one reason he gave as to why he didn't tell us about it 3 weeks ago.
And I'm sorry, but a SAPS report could have easily given us those kinds of details. I'm not saying it's a cover-up, but I am definitely saying that if you wanted to make a story about an attempted assassination attempt that nobody was believing go away, this is exactly how you would do it.
As vague as possible.
You make it as vague and as inscrutable as possible, as like, what's the word for when you can't actually, non-falsifiable as possible. Virtually no details. Please, everybody forget. Please make this go away. An absolutely bizarre potential end to a story that became a story because, for reasons that nobody can tell, it both was and wasn't a story. Schrödinger, how are you? Like, genuinely. Like, this is the story of a story that should have been a story and wasn't a story, and we don't even know whether or not it was a story. I need a weekend. Okay, let's get on to the third and final story that also we all thought was going to be a massive story and then wasn't a story. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy visited South Africa, a state visit. Everybody expected that this was going to be massive. Whenever Zelenskyy travels internationally, it's accompanied by a lot of scrutiny from media and politicians around the world for obvious reasons. He's at war with his country, Ukraine, is at war with Russia, trying to fend off an invasion and get the Russians out of land that is clearly Ukraine's land. And that is why earlier this week, President Putin of Russia called Ramaphosa, and then his people, the Russians, made a really big deal about the fact that on this call, which none of us has seen, it wasn't a public call, that Putin re-emphasized the Russian perspective on why this is all happening. Re-emphasized to Ramaphosa that Russia is doing this to protect its security interests and to try to root out what they see as basically Nazism, but like evil within Ukrainian society that threatens Russia. And so that was the context. That was Putin and Russia watching this event. And then we found out that Trump also had a call with Ramaphosa, which must have been wild, by the way, because remember, Ramaphosa is the head of the very terrible things that are happening in South Africa government that Trump is so deeply upset about and is refugeeing white South Africans for when he's not providing refugee status or asylum speeding up or any of that to basically any other group of people in the world. So for them to have a meeting, it must have been weird. It must have been really weird and really wild. But they also had a meeting. And suddenly South Africa was once again the center of attention for the whole world. When do we really want to be? Probably not. But then Zelenskyy arrived in South Africa. And at about the same time, Russia launched an extraordinary, fatal, damaging bombing attack on certain parts of Ukraine, which is something that they do fairly often when Zelenskyy is traveling. And almost instantly, Zelenskyy said, well, I need to go back to Ukraine then, because my people are under attack. People have died. Bombing continues across Ukraine from Russia. And so the state visit in the end didn't have any of the kind of like pomp and ceremony that it would usually have. It didn't have a gun salute. And so they eventually cut the state visit short. Zelenskyy and Ramaphosa met and they exchanged words, kind of obvious words that they then said to the press about how both are absolutely committed to trying to find an end to the bloodshed and a peaceful process in Ukraine. And then Zelenskyy went back to Ukraine. And as far as I understand, Ukraine's foreign minister is staying on to speak with various ministers in our government about potential trade deals, about potential like collaboration between different ministries between the two countries. But that was basically it. Yeah. And so in a week where Ramaphosa ended up speaking with both Putin and Trump directly and then hosted Zelenskyy, basically much ado about nothing.
Yeah. Just potential for cooperation between the two countries.
Yeah. Another English literature reference. Much ado about nothing.
Fair enough.
Isn't it a play?
We need to stop walking into these, because our minds are not on those topics right now.
Not at all. Shame. I hope our former lecturers don't watch this show.